everybody should own gold and silver, and I expect gold and silver to do very well in the next few years because there's going to be more turmoil, more chaos in the world economy and in governments and with currencies.
Jim, the country where you live in, which is Singapore, has a lovely real estate business. You got some of the best real estate and office and residential buildings. Now that work at home has been adopted and some companies have even acknowledged it for next couple of years, how do you see the commercial real estate market moving?
Well, in Singapore, to that specifically, you're starting to see more shops close. You're starting to see, there's a big department store which has been here 150 years or something, which just closed yesterday. So this is starting to have an effect. Even in Singapore, if you go to New York, you cannot imagine how many shops are closed and boarded up because people are just not going to shops anymore, either because they don't have the money or because they're buying online or for whatever reason. So that applies to Singapore. You asked specifically about Singapore. It is having an effect in Singapore. I've been coming to Singapore for 35 years or so, and I have never quite seen as many vacancies as I see now because the virus, because the economy, and I would suspect that is going to continue in commercial real estate here because people are learning about alternatives.
People who had mines, oil, energy assets. Then it moved to folks who had presence in the physical retail business, or they had exposure to a software company. Now, looking at what the Ant Financial IPO could do, looks like the world is now moving towards fintech. What is your take on the way how the list of billionaires now is changing completely?
Well, Nikunj, you're exactly right. Good insight. But I would add that it's always been that way. Every 20 years or so, there's a whole new list of people making a lot of money. There's always somebody who inherits money, but the people who are making fortunes, the industries are always changing. Things like blockchain right now. Blockchain is going to change everything, is changing everything we know, Nikunj. Everything. It's going to put a lot of people out of business. But electricity put a lot of people out of business too, Nikunj. So it brought in new opportunities, and that's what's happening now. Yes, if you know a good blockchain company or individuals, you should try to get involved because it's going to change everything we know. But it's also going to put a lot of people out of business. So don't be blind. It's going to change a lot of things. A lot of banks, for instance, and insurance companies, all the back offices and all this back office processing that goes on, all of that's going to be eliminated in the next few years. I don't know what's going to happen to all these banks. There's a bank on every corner. Somebody's got to figure out what to do with all this space. Maybe they'll become old age homes. I don't know what's going to happen to them.
Do you think right now there is a lot of bad news in global banks and they warrant a buy and a relook?
In global banks, yes, of course there is. Some banks are unbelievably cheap. Even Chinese banks, China's been growing dramatically, but Chinese banks are cheap everywhere for many reasons, because that is the past, Nikunj. Even in India, look out the window, Nikunj. You'll see lots of banks. Most of them are not going to be there in 15 years. I don't know. As I said, I don't know what they're going to be. But banking and finance is changing very, very, very quickly, and there's no reason.
Jim, you understand financial history much more than anyone else. I'm sure when you started investing that time, everybody was talking about investing only in one country, which was Japan. Then came the surge in US blue chip stocks. Then came the comeback in China. Which country do you think this decade will belong to? Because the coronavirus, in a sense, has really shaken and changed the pendulum of global growth.
China's going to come out of this much stronger. Other countries, Japan, for instance, you mentioned Japan. Where Japan, has had its population declining for 10 years. The debt skyrockets every day in Japan, Nikunj, and the population goes down every year. It's a country that's got very serious problems facing it. Again, another example of change. 30 years ago, everybody wanted to own Japan. I'm telling you that 30 years from now, there's barely going to be a Japan.